Okay. We're back from closed session. There's no reportable action. Thank you, Counselor. With that, we will close the Selma City Council special meeting and open the Selma City Council regular meeting, November 4th, 2019, 6:01 p.m. Our invocation tonight will be led by Pastor Nelson Schwam of Church of the Redeemer.
Good evening, City Council. It's a pleasure to be here again tonight to offer this invocation for our meeting. Let's pray. Father, I thank you for this day that you have given us, and I rejoice in your work within our lives and within our community. I thank you for the community of Selma and for the individuals, families, churches, organizations, and businesses that have worked hard to help bring opportunities and hope to the community in which we live. I also pray for the families in our community who have recently experienced tragedy in their homes, their families, and their neighborhoods. Bring peace to our many troubled homes and neighborhoods. I pray for your presence and your blessings over this council meeting tonight, and pray that you would give wisdom and grace to each council member and city staff member as they continue their work for the betterment of our community. I pray also for each individual that is present here tonight to address this council. Give wisdom where wisdom is needed and grace where grace is needed. I pray that all that is done would be for your glory. And I pray this in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Thank you.
Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Ready? Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Avalos?
Here.
Councilmember Guerra?
Here.
Councilmember Trujillo?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco?
Here.
Mayor Robertson?
Here, potential conflicts of interest. Any council member has a potential conflict of interest may announce the item and recuse themselves from discussing or voting on the matter. Oral communications. At this time, any member of the public may address the city council on any item within its jurisdiction but not on the agenda. No action or discussion will take place on any item within the council's jurisdiction. Issues raised will be referred to the city manager for review. Members of the public will be asked to limit their remarks to 3 minutes.
Hi, Teresa Salas, 3221 Lee Street. I am here because a couple of weeks ago we had the citywide cleanup where Waste Management was sponsoring where we could take our trash over there to be dumped. In past years it's always been held here in the city limits of Selma. And the last two cleanups were done where we had to take our trash over to their site in Fresno on the other side of Fowler. I did that. I had someone help me load things up in the truck because it was my understanding that someone there was supposed to help us unload. I got there, there's no signs, no anything of where you're supposed to go. I ended up in the wrong place twice until somebody told me, no, you need to go up to the scale, and so I did that. I had to give them my driver's license, and they kept my driver's license while I went to dump my trash. They pointed someplace out to me. Again, I misunderstood where I was supposed to go. I went, and then somebody else said, no, you need to go back over here, back your truck up over here. There was a gentleman there. I said, you're supposed to help me take it down. He says, no, you have to do it yourself. I'm leaving. I was like, oh, okay, fine. It was an enclosed building, shed kind of thing. So here I am trying to pull things out of my truck. It smelled awful. It smelled like trash. It was awful. It was just basically taking your stuff and throwing it on the floor there. And then I had to go off the premises and back in around to the beginning to get my driver's license back. And I had to go back up on the scale. I guess they weigh you to see how much trash you dumped. But there was, like I said, no signage whatsoever, nothing to tell you where to go, where to dump your trash. There was no help whatsoever. It smelled awful. It was just a nightmare for me. When we've had it in Selma in the past, it's someplace close by. It's someplace they have a lot of people there helping you take your trash down, and it's just so much easier, I think, for the city, for the citizens of Selma to do. And I would just ask that when the Waste Management comes before you again to ask if they can do it at their place again, that you decline and make it so that it's easier for us to get our trash dumped. We contract with Waste Management. It is part of their contract to furnish us with these 2 cleanup days per year for the city, and it needs to be something that's to our benefit, not theirs. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you get Ms. Salas's concerns to Waste Management, City Manager? Yes. For a response. Thank you.
Ten 57 Mill Street, Rose Robertson, and
Do I give them our home address? Jane Ono, 6830, forgot where I live, 6830 East Saginaw, Mountain Country.
as you all know, we had our 7th annual Tejano Country Bash. Normally, we come the following weekend. We have the weekend to count the funding, and we come and give you guys an update every year. Unfortunately, this year, we had a 3rd band, so we had more expense, so we decided to clean. So we were exhausted, and we needed a little more time. So here we are today to give you guys an update. As you know, there's many thanks to the top sponsors, which are Donergy, Cal Water, and Waste Management. Other sponsors, the other people that helped their hard work, many citizens who helped set up in the morning, cleaned after the event, sold tickets. You all know who you are. The list is too long. We would also like to thank the other sponsors who are also United Health Centers, Matco Electric, Robertson Guerra Insurance Agency, Al's Electric, Empower Production and Media, Selma Police Officers Association. Attendance was about 850-ish. With all the sponsorship, beer sales, ticket sales, amount raised was $27,580. Both Second Chance Animal Shelter and American Cancer Society will both be receiving $9,440. Thank you to everybody who helped with this Tejano event, and we will see you all next year at the 8th Annual Tejano Concert Bash, October 17, 2020. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
But wait. I'd like to thank Rose and the Tejano event for sharing the proceeds with the American Cancer Society this year. For the past 6 years, I personally volunteered at the Tejano event to support the animal shelter. It was great this year to be on the receiving end for a cause that we are so passionate about. This has been our best year ever in fundraising for the American Cancer Society. We've been out in the community causing awareness of services that the American Cancer Society provides. We're in contacting with the churches and medical offices, trying to educate people on what is available to them through the American Cancer Society. And I'm very proud to say that, usually the American Cancer Society dumps all their money in the big pool and, yes, they're finding a cure, they're looking for a cure, but we have gotten it to where they are putting this money into Fresno County and into Selma for the people of Selma. So it's never been done before, and we're making changes and we're making strides, and it's awesome. So thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Good job.
Just quickly, Scott, they said they can't hear you, so please speak in the microphone. Thank you.
We'll do that. Thanks for your accountability and transparency, by the way. Anyone else with oral communications tonight for anything not on the agenda? Okay, with that, we'll have the first of our 2 special presentations, the Voter Choice Act presentation by Brandy Orth, Fresno County Clerk, Registrar of Voters. Welcome.
Good evening, thank you. I'm sorry, I touched something. Maybe Raina did. I'm Brandy Orth, your County Clerk, Registrar of Voters. I'm very happy to be with you today to share information about the Voters' Choice Act and what changes will be coming to voting in March of next year. The Voters' Choice Act was signed into law in 2016. Several counties were eligible to go in 2018. Fresno County is eligible to go next year. Board of Supervisors approved this method in March of this year, and we've been holding a lot of public meetings and gathering input and working through the process. So we have a short public service announcement that I think will kind of sum it up for you all, but I first have to give a great shout out to Raina. We love working with your city clerk, and I know you appreciate her as much as we do. So hit it, Raina.
Primary, there's a new way to vote in Fresno. Fresno County. These exciting changes will improve when, where, and how you vote. Check your voter registration online in advance of the upcoming election. Fresno County residents will have 3 ways to vote. All registered voters will receive a vote-by-mail ballot weeks before the election. You can mail it, postage-free. Drop it off at one of 33 secure drop boxes or visit one of 50 vote centers. Vote centers across the county will provide other resources like materials in other languages and accessible voting machines. You can even register or make changes to your registration. Free public transportation to vote centers will also be available. The Voters' Choice Act makes voting more convenient and accessible to Fresno County. For more information, visit votefresnocounty.com. And remember, mail it, drop it, or visit in March 2020.
There you go. How about that for in a nutshell? So I'm happy to report that we have looked at several locations in Selma as a possible vote center, and we believe that the Selma Resource Center will be the best for your voters. Parking on the street, parking on the ends of the block there, and we are planning on having it open for 11 days. That's kind of the beauty of this program, is that it increases voting to 93 hours over multiple days on the weekends. So in Selma, it'll be open starting February 22nd, be open for 2 weekends and the week in between, up and through Election Day. So we're excited about that. We're ready to help the community come out and vote. And I believe for your consideration on your consent calendar is a resolution in support of the Voters' Choice Act, which we hope you will consider passing. And the only other short video that we have, if it's okay, we also need a lot of workers. And so we're going to be hiring over 700 workers, and they'll have more training because we'll be open more days and it'll have a lot more technology out there. And so if it's okay, I'd like to share with you, the audience, that we have employment opportunities, and take it away, Raina.
That will help serve. Looking for a job that will help serve your community? Fresno County is launching 50 vote centers this fall across the county, helping county residents to vote more days, more ways. And we need your help to do this. We're looking for reliable and hardworking individuals with computer skills who want to serve as temporary workers in our vote centers. You'll be on the front lines of the election process. Whether you're retired, between jobs, or just looking to make some extra income, we need you. Head to FresnoCountyJobs.com and apply today. Get paid to be a part of history.
이तिहा스 히사번호
역사 한국이 되기를 바랍니다.
成为历史的一部分. David Bobin Domodolayatone. Sea parte della storia. Be a part of history.
So there you go. Anybody can visit votefresnocounty.com, and all this information is there, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Is there an actual vote that's going to take place in the assembly on this voting act, or on the new format? I know we're looking at a resolution to support this, but is this something that's already taken place legislatively?
Sure. To go to the vote center model, yes, the Board of Supervisors approved it in March of this year, and so that will be the model that we're going into next year.
Okay. And then Selma will have one voting center.
Yes.
Okay. And that will at least be for the March election. Is that going to be the same for November, or will it be the same for all elections going forward until it changes?
Correct. So the beauty of this model is that these vote centers, we hope and have planned for them to be consistently the same ones over time, because as you know, sometimes it gets confusing. Where do you go? And your polling place changes. So this way we want to set them and have them be static for future.
Okay. Sounds like it'd be more time and more availability and more access for the voters. Sounds like a really good
Exactly.
thing.
What's good about Brandy, I
More input
like
from
the
the
idea
voters.
because I remember when you first we talked about this and you laid it out, and I like the idea because now you have weekends.
Yes.
People that, work Monday through Friday, and the thing was closed, they couldn't go nowhere. Now they have a place to vote and drop these items off, and no problem.
Right. That's exactly the whole point of this legislation, is to make it more flexible for people to participate. We hope that if you need to go to a vote center, that you do so over the weekend. Don't wait till Election Day, till the last moment, and everyone will automatically receive a ballot at home. And so in other jurisdictions, they found that people returned more ballots by mail than not. And so, again, I think it's all positive things, and we're just trying to give you more opportunities to participate.
Will counting be any different, or will counting take place as it always has? After?
Pretty much the same way. The only thing that I'm hopeful for is if we can get an increase of people to return their vote-by-mail ballots prior to Election Day, I can, by law, go ahead and start processing them. And you know that the numbers that I push out right after 8 o'clock on election night are all of those vote-by-mail envelopes that I've been able to process through the system. So now, if people return more ballots that method, I'll have more numbers to push out for you. And then we wait for the 53 vote centers to come in. You know, the geography of our county hasn't changed. It's still 6,000 square miles. Sometimes it'll take a little while, but we'll actually bring in all those 50 vote centers.
Okay. Does any member of the public have any questions or comments tonight?
Thank you.
Joe, would you like to step up here, please? Ask it.
Am I understanding that you're going to take away all the
Introduce
voting
yourself
polls?
to-
All the voting polls?
Introduce yourself first.
Joe Gonzalez,
Thank you, sir.
2305 Nebraska, Nevada. Am I understanding that they're going to take away all the voting polls and just have one?
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, just one in Selma.
Just one in Selma, that's it.
The rest going to be mail.
Well,
mail in.
what's happening, Joe, is it's no longer, it's more the mail ballot now.
Uh-huh.
We vote by mail. That's the thing in the future. That way, like she said, if you drop it in the mail early, it's processed, and on election night, you can see the numbers jump real quick, you know, who's gonna be the winner, who's not, you know. They'll save time, and she said earlier, they'll be offering transportation.
That's
Yeah.
what I thought too.
Public transportation in the voting centers.
To go to to drop the mail ballot, if you don't have time to mail it off, you can come to the polling place and drop it off. You probably get a ride from a bus service, bus service, and drop it off, and then go back home.
Will this be explained to, I'm talking about the barrio, a lot of people there don't speak English, and
Yeah.
they have kids that are registered to
I-
vote. Will this be explained to them, or so they're aware that there will only be one voting poll instead of in different areas?
I think Brandy probably can answer that. She could probably answer that better, Joe.
Thank you for your questions. Yes, so in this process, what we had to do was create an elections administration plan, which we had to submit to the Secretary of State for approval, which we have received. But a huge component of it is voter outreach, because it's really hard to change voter activity, voter behavior, right? And so we also have to reach out to all of the 7 languages that we have to provide in Fresno County. And so we have a special committee that we have representation from all of those 7 languages, and we are reaching out to them through community groups, through mailers, through their media outlets, and you're right, we need to tell everybody all about this. So actually, we'll be working with Reina and hoping to put a link on your website to ours so that we can get voters right to the information that they need in all of the languages that they need.
We'll be doing robocalls as well, I would imagine. People know
We
when the
haven't.
poll's open.
Oh, for us?
That would be locally.
Oh, okay. Great,
And-
thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, with that, we'll move on to our next special presentation, which is going to be a public safety presentation by Chief Dick.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I was asked to make a presentation about some of the incidents we've been having lately, some gang intervention. We've had a number of shootings I know that have taken place. Probably the 2 most prominent were the one where we had some children injured, and then we had a homicide about a week ago. I believe you're being supplied a packet, a copy of the PowerPoint there. Okay. When we have incidents like that, we try to become proactive. We'll add personnel. Some of the things we've done is parole, probation searches. We've also been in contact with our ACT people to do some more of those, do unannounced compliance checks, validated and associate gang members arriving the city, and we are moving toward gearing up for one for ourselves, which is where we go to make some personal contacts with some of the people we've been looking for or that we believe are involved in something that may be on probation or parole, and we try to coordinate who we might be looking for. We also have still an officer assigned to the ACT team who is active in bringing the ACT team to our community. They've been involved in a number of already search warrants related to people who are under the control of the ACT program, the SB 109, AB 109, excuse me, with the probationers and through the Fresno County, where we've developed the plan with funding from the state with the prison reduction. So we also still are using an analyst who is a dedicated crime analyst, reviews every case submitted, is able to take that analysis and do predictions, predictive policing, where we have areas where we know we're having either maybe burglaries or other things, and we can have the officers be proactive in those areas and looking for those. And we've seen some reductions in our crime activity when we're hitting our predictives just based upon how often we're seeing crimes in a certain area, and it has reduced some crime in the city. So we've also continued to be involved as time permits with the Bringing Broken Neighborhoods Back to Life outreach to impact current and potential gang members through faith-based and community intervention. As far as we had, I believe they had, the last thing was the March for Jesus, some things like that. We're out in the community and trying to bring help to the citizens through the faith-based community. We have volunteers in policing who we have approximately 30 active volunteers, adding resources to the department, free up active members to focus on crime response. In fact, just recently, one of our volunteers happened to be nearby when something happened and was able to give us firsthand information on a vehicle description to be able to make a vehicle stop and make an arrest out of the car. So they sometimes are like our officers, right place at the right time, and we're able to provide us information to have a better description and on the scene. So they do crime prevention stuff they help us with. They help us when we need roads blocked off, which frees up our officers to be back out in the street and handling calls for service. We still have neighborhood watch programs. We have 18 active neighborhood watch groups, and we are working with them to contact their neighbors, know who your neighbors are. I think you're all familiar with the Neighborhood Watch program. And another thing we've also just gave me the thought that we have also just recently brought before the council the ring, doorbell ring agreement, and that will allow us with the people who have the doorbell ring program to allow us to look at their video or to be able to get it through the Ring portal, which is the company's portal, so that if they allow permission, then we are able to look at that and see where it might help us in identifying vehicles, people, other things related to crime in the city. As of recently, had 45 arrests during compliance operations, more than a dozen recovered, and this has, for the last year, we've had a 40% reduction in overall crime to date. We've had a 33% reduction in homicides for the year. We had 3 last year. We are at 2 for this calendar year, and so if all goes well, we won't have another one. So that would continue on, but for the last year at this time and this year at this time, we've had a 33% reduction. We've had a 70% reduction in aggravated assault, which would be all those falling under like shots fired or something like that, where those would fall under aggravated assaults. So we've had a 70% reduction in aggravated assaults from last year at this time to currently. There were some questions about gang injunctions. And gang injunctions are a civil order barring suspected gang members from associating with each other in specified geographical areas, or they may name specific people in the gang injunction. Another thing that is done is you sometimes have unnamed John Does in those. The issue that has come up in the last few years is the number of gang members in and out of an area, who moves in, who moves out, and gangs are not as restrictive to the neighborhoods they are controlling. They have moved to other parts of the city. We've had some move out of Fresno into our city, and so you see that it is not as easily to put them in a geographical area or limit their contact with each other. They must be validated, which is an extensive process. They estimate, when other cities have done it, somewhere between 2,000 to 4,000 man-hours just to get the validation and information in place to produce a gang injunction. Currently, there was a 2017 rolling into 2018 civil case, or case that came out of the courts, out of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, where every gang member who has been listed on any injunction has to be given the right to go to court and be shown why he is listed as a gang member, and there has to be the proof presented. So you could end up with, if you had 100 people you identified, just using a round number, you would have to, with the assistance of the district attorney and probably private counsel, be able to validate and prove to the courts on each case why you would need, or they can remain validated as a gang member. You have to do periodic updates to confirm that they are still listed in the gang and are still active. And then, again, this came out of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal, and that was in Youth Justice Coalition versus the City of Los Angeles. So that was a case that is kind of set this. In checking in with our Magic Commander for the rural area, Fresno County, as well as other cities, have gone away from the gang injunction because of the mobility of the gangs, the moving around, and are focusing more on other things like following up through jail phone calls, doing some search warrants on phones when arrests are made, other ways of tying them into the gang lifestyle, that if the crimes are committed for a gang, the furtherance of the gang, and those charges can be filed, that you have proof that comes from other avenues other than a gang injunction. There are still probably more than half a dozen gang injunctions active in Fresno County, but it has been some time since a new gang injunction has come about, and some of the ones that are currently in place are less and less successful in prosecutions. They have gone to other things such as we discussed. Selma PD, the MAGIC, which is Multi-Agency Gang Enforcement Consortium, we are part of it. We have an officer assigned to the task force. Time is shared with other team member and agency cities. And as I stated before, in speaking with the rural Magic Commander, they are not looking to go after any more gang injunctions based upon recent court cases. Where that leaves us, we have developed a tactical response team. We have current employees who are assigned to assist officers in ongoing investigations. So when we have a case like this, they assist the detectives in searching for people who are wanted, who we may need to be talking to, who we may be looking to arrest, and they are our employees who are out actively in the city. So all of our resources from those people are expended in the city and for our citizens. They supplement patrol in handling large cases, such as some of the recent cases we've had. They were on scene, assisted in following up on information, so they were able to do that as well. They spent all of their time working, as I said, in the city on our issues. And not to say that Magic hasn't been helpful to come in, but if, as the other day, they were not able to respond for some time, they were tied up finishing up on a search warrant, and so they had to finish that up before they were able to come and assist us in coming into the city. So there are times when, while Magic is a great resource to assist us, they are unavailable as they are doing something in another city, as there are times when they'd be in our city and not have the ability to leave immediately. So recent results, what we've had, Selma PD personnel have recovered 9 firearms in the last 30 days and 5 in the last 7 days. A couple of those have been on search warrants. We've had some recovered off of vehicle stops, and information we received from members of the public where somebody was known to have a firearm. We're able to make a stop on the vehicle and recover the firearm. These cases are still pending. Some of them we're waiting for firearm results to file additional charges on the people involved. We just recently on Friday served a search warrant after a shots fired call, and that's one of those I spoke to. We recovered 2 weapons from a residence, and we are waiting for some some comparisons on the calibration and weapon to see where it's tied to, like I said, to file other charges on these people. Magic has responded most days in the last couple weeks. They've been in town a number of times. They are very helpful in assisting us to make stops, and what we seem to see is that when we have a large law enforcement group out, that a lot of the problem gang people will return to their homes and stay there, and it settles it down for that day, sometimes for a couple days. When they have not been available or we are needing additional resources, we have had additional offers to be deployed to assist patrol on handling calls and for making vehicle stops in areas where we have had problems. I believe that's all I have for you as far as the PowerPoint. If you have any questions that I'm able to answer, I'd be more than happy to.
Thanks, Chief. Does council have any questions for Chief Tick?
Myron, that's good stats, really. And thank you for bringing the team in, operational when you need it. I thank you. And I was going to ask you another question. We haven't had a DUI checkpoint for a long time. Do we have twice a year, or like before?
We had done those types of DUI checkpoint stuff in the past. Many of them were off of grants, which we seem to be with OTS. We seem to get it for a 2-year period, often have a year off, and then we often would find ourselves getting it again. So those help us to have the funding to pay overtime and resources to do those. Other than that, we try to do a couple a year so that we're able to, like around holidays and different stuff like that.
Yeah, because I noticed when you have them in the city of Selma, for unknown reasons, when we have the checkpoint, crime seems to be at a standstill at that time, because I guess they see the word gets out, oh my goodness, a checkpoint over here, so everybody kind of behaves, you know. And I'm glad that that you're proactive in bringing the Magic team and the probation operation in the city of Selma when you need it, and to kind of suppress the activity that's taking place. And I'm glad that you're using the technology, you know, camera technology to help assist. I will myself in the future, you know, certain areas. When I was down in Long Beach, there's cameras available. They call them mobile cameras that you can put them up on telephone poles, whatever, and they can be they're wireless and they can be monitored through your police station. You know, I didn't ask how much it costs, but new technology in the future, you know. And I'd like to see like certain areas, you know, subdivisions where people, I considered crime activity. I want to say certain gang activity, blue or red activity. If we could put some of those cameras and put some visibility in there. And then at the same time, I'm glad that you're being proactive in the neighborhood watch programs and everything, because it seems to be working, and I applaud you on that. You know, because it's working. You know, slowly, and I also thank the ministerial group that are participating with you. I notice they're participating with you, and I thank them as well. You know.
Chief Dick, I want to say thank you for stepping up while we're looking for a full-time police chief. Thank you for your service and being so committed and being a long-time member of the police force and doing this before as police chief. Your experience is invaluable. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said when these acts occur, a large law enforcement presence on the streets settles things down. Seems like that's really necessary after something happens. If Magic can't get in, then we need to call up Selma PD personnel just to get out there, show a presence to calm tempers down, so that there aren't these revenge and these reprisals and this back and forth shootings and killings. I think that's very important. You know, you mentioned that the gang injunctions are fading away. I think it's also important to look, you know, what's going to work. You know, to always look for what can be effective to reduce the incidence of gang violence. Because, you know, we can't stick our head in the sand. We have to solve the problem of gang violence, and we've seen what misery it can bring to neighborhoods and families and individuals, and we have to find a way to stop that at all levels. But I thank you for your efforts on that.
Thank you.
Chief, I have a question. Are we fully staffed in the police department currently?
We are, I would say that's a yes and no answer. As far as officers and that goes, the staffing is off based upon me coming from my previous position and doing the chief's job right now. So we do have a vacant position, but once a full-time chief has been selected as in place and I am able to return back to my previous position, we would then be fully staffed officer-wise. And with the transition, in conversation with the city manager, there has been we're going to delay the selection of a admin assistant for the department as well.
Okay. So currently we have one specialist that's our Magic specialist, correct?
We currently have one officer assigned to the Magic team, yes.
And then do we have anyone or any other officers that are being trained to be on the Magic team?
At this time, no. We, based upon our levels of our officers, we have assigned somebody to Magic so that there's as with any other group that you're working with, when you're involved in the group daily and have somebody assigned, they are more apt to come to your city and assist when need be. And so based upon our population and our size of a force, a second one probably would not be any more beneficial than having one assigned to it. Most cities our size only have one assigned to the Magic team and the county has a number of deputies assigned to it.
Okay.
Chief, I have a question here. I congratulate you for everything you've been doing, stepping up, and you've been doing a tremendous job. Also, with the event that we had, you did a really good job. I appreciate that. I'm actually the one that called the city manager and asked for you to do a presentation because of the fact that many months ago, we had many people here asking us about the outrage of what our police department was doing. At this point in time, we've had one death, 2 kids being shot, and numerous gunfires. Even back in my residence, I have gunfires being shot. Is there anything else that we can do as the municipal, as the legislators, to assist the department financially, policy making? Is there anything else we can do to assist the police department that you've been in office now for these months that we can assist you more with?
I think the biggest impact, or probably one of the biggest things that would help us, are a couple things. We had developed this response team, tactical response team, with some movement and with some issues going on personnel-wise right now. We have, to be able to fully staff our shifts, we are one short in that. So that is an area where it would be helpful to do that. Another area that would be helpful for the department, just based upon some of the cases going on, is our detectives. We have 2 detectives that work, are very generalist in what they do. So they could do anything from the recent homicide we've had to some shootings to fraud checks and different stuff like that. The ability to have additional detectives that can concentrate on these and not be pulled away for other types of follow-up that may be important, but they get put on the back burner when you have some of these issues come up. And so we have members of our public who feel like they're not being, nobody's helping them get this figure out who did whatever, wrote a bad check on their account, stole their checks, did whatever is done to them. And so we have to prioritize, but with 2 detectives only, it makes it difficult to handle all of the volume of follow-ups that need to be done.
In regards to the delay in the administrative person, knowing that we have a lapse, or we have a very concern in our department, would it not be best that we hire that person and look to fire that person and not put a delay on it?
So the chief and I did discuss that, and because the administrative assistant specifically is to be the administrative assistant for the chief of police, we had discussed that it would be something that that individual that's coming into the new position would want to be involved in that hiring.
I just want to make sure that we are crossing all our T's and dotting our I's. I want to make sure that the public knows that we are adamant and we're going to be asking every question that's allowable to make sure that we can hose in on the problems that we have. We have the church organizations and the school districts, talking, and I've been in meetings with the school district, but we, the public, have to get together and start working on it. But we also need to share that with the public and let them know what we're doing. So if there's anything, I ask you, if there's anything that the council can do as the legislators, please let us know. Okay?
I
And
absolutely
we value a lot.
And I would say to anybody in the public that if you see something, the old, they're saying that's been around, see something, say something. You don't always have to identify yourself. Sometimes information provided anonymously points us in the right direction. And we try to share what we can about things going on. And, we have vehicles we're looking for, a white car. If somebody found the description of that white car, and we've put it out there a little bit, that it, if somebody saw it, maybe you have the right car, maybe you don't. We're willing to check it out. It could be the lead we need to move us down that road. So anytime the public sees something that is suspicious, we'd rather have them call, go out and check it out, and it may turn out to be a simple thing. It may turn out to be that call, stopped a burglary, stopped something else.
Yep.
So,
Members of the public have any issues? Come on up.
Rose Moralities, 2565 Almond Street. I have a couple of questions. One question, and I'm not sure if you would be able to address it, but are we receiving any funding for Prop 47? And if we are, how much, and what are we doing with it?
Prop 47
Yes.
is the, I don't.
Okay,
know
Prop
some-
47 is the reducing the drug crimes to non-felonies if they volunteer for treatment, to go into a substance abuse program, and we receive funding so we can start up programs out of that Prop 47.
To my knowledge, the city does not receive any of that funding. That funding is more directed toward groups that are people, to groups that are helping with drug addiction and those types of things. Those funds do not come directly to us.
Okay.
Most of those funds go to the county, and they contract with things such as Turning Point and some other drug rehab groups that would be doing work in those areas.
Okay. And then Mayor Robertson and the last chief helped me with some violence that was in our community. We started a neighborhood watch with the mayor's help, and there was a letter that was mailed to the homeowner of the gang members that stated as long as they keep those gang members there, they were going to be fined. The gang members were gone in a week because we held the homeowner accountable.
Yeah.
And we can do that
different.
through
It's a similar
calls, and
type of
that's where
letter.
the calls.
Nuisance
There was a
letter.
letter that went
Right.
out.
But I was going to say,
Yeah.
those calls to us sometimes, alerting us to calls for service, that is how we generate that letter stating that your residence, which you own and are renting, has become a nuisance.
Right.
And we are working on the problem, but we will cite you administratively and use other remedies unless you work to remove this problem. And that has worked, but that's where we need some of those calls for information that is a constant problem. Because if we're there one time, because nobody called us, it doesn't have the same impact as if we've been called there 5 or 10 times, and we can declare it a nuisance house.
Okay, so that's where I think as a community, we need to mature and grow up and no longer use snitches get stitches. It's time to take care of our community and report anything that we see, because if we care about our community, we need to speak up and work with the police department to help them.
Thank you.
Well said.
That's correct.
Chief
So-
Dick, can you talk about the POP officer, the problem-oriented police officer? Tell us a little bit more about what that entails in terms of homes that are constant problems in Selma.
We have a POP officer, problem-oriented police officer, who is trying to address these things directly. We are working with, when he comes into it, such as a call like that, a problem house, we would work with our code enforcement and our POP officer to identify the owner, to identify his calls for service. If we are repeatedly going there, we try to identify those things, and that's where that letter would get out. But the POP officer, if you have an issue that is continuing to occur at your residence or around your neighborhood, please call. Our POP officer is Matt Hughes, and he would be more than happy to either handle the call, or we'll figure out how we need to disperse the call within the police department to get working on your issue. People sometimes wish to remain anonymous. The issue with that, though, sometimes is if we have limited information and are not able to go back to somebody, it makes it difficult sometimes to connect all the dots. If we have something going on, misinformation may be missed, or needing a piece of information to maybe get the elements of a crime. So while you may remain anonymous, it is always more helpful to us if you leave a name and a phone number or a way of contacting you.
Because I've had citizens contact me many times about problem houses in the neighborhood that, what should I do? I feel powerless. Well, the answer is, keep calling, right? Keep calling,
Yes.
keep contacting PD, and then it'll get on the POP's radar, because in the past, the police just haven't had the budget to devote that time and resource to those problem areas that the council has devoted those resources to in the last budget, hiring 2 additional officers to have more of a presence on the street. So I think it's really important for that POP officer to get out to those problem areas and make sure that those homeowners know that there's a problem there and do face financial consequences for overutilization of the police resources.
Yes.
So thank you for continuing that, and definitely let us know how that's going. I know that's a new program.
Yes, thank you.
Any more input?
My name again is Joe Gonzalez. I live at 2305 Nebraska in the barrio. I'd just like to say, this is what we've been asking for a long time. A report where I can go back and translate to the people in the barrio what's going on. I'm going to bring up a subject that a while back, I was around an incident that was happening, and I heard a comment say, "Why do we have 4 cops now where before we didn't have nothing?" I said, well, they're doing their job now. Now we're starting to get something going. Maybe, believe it or not, I live right in the middle of all the shootings. So I hear them, and now I'm beginning to hear the shots. Within minutes, I hear the sirens coming. After this is what we've been asking for. We just want something to say, hey, they're trying, they're doing their best. They're not going to solve it. They're not going to do away with it 100%, but at least they're trying and they're doing something now. So this is what we've been asking for. Now I can go back and translate to the barrio. Mario, you should stay on.
Thank you, Joe. And like I said, please call. We sometimes don't know issues without people of the public telling us what's going on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For
Thank
your
you, Myron.
presentation.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move on to the consent calendar. All items listed under the consent calendar are considered routine. The complete consent calendar will be enacted by one motion by roll call vote. For purposes of discussion, any council member may have an item removed from the consent calendar and placed back on the regular agenda. The council will then vote on the majority, the remainder of the consent calendar. Does anyone have any items they'd like to take off tonight?
I'd like to
I'd like
take
to-
Go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, I'd like to take off item 1A.
I would like to take off item 1B.
Is it getting a little hot in here? A
Yeah.
little hot? Raina, could we turn up the AC a little bit, please? Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, with that, is there a motion to approve items C and D?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay.
C and D.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Avalos?
Aye.
Councilmember Trujillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco?
Aye.
Mayor Robertson?
Aye. Okay, item 1A.
Okay, I just have a question here. Okay, on the registry, check register, I just look at page 1, check number 73649 for Castle and Sparks. And it says here for September 18th, August 19, legal fees of $68,999.45. I was just wondering, because I thought this one back here, when we pulled back in August, and we questioned her legal fees for $18,125.86. I'm just concerned why it's so much higher for September 18th. Are we,
Well, this is actually multiple months. One once the contract came to its point where it's in, they did some housekeeping and cleaned out multiple months at that point. It's actually different time spans. They were skipping different periods within the contract itself to kind of clean up some of the items. So once the contract was ended, at that point, they did some housekeeping and cleaned up pretty much everything. There is still one invoice outstanding, and that is a proration for the month of September.
Okay, so you're saying there's still one outstanding for Casso?
That's correct.
Okay,
And I actually did contact them today to see if we can get that invoice.
yeah. Could I get a statement, or can we get a statement in regards to the numbers on here? Just to make sure that it's clarified? Because it just kind of doesn't make sense when we're going back 2018.
Yeah,
and
they
then
were
you have-
skipping some periods in which they billed, is what
Okay.
it was.
Then my other question is, for Neil, I don't see any bill for you, Neil.
You haven't sent
Nor
one
do
away?
I.
I know.
I assume that's because they haven't processed it yet.
Okay. I'd kind of like to see this more on a monthly basis instead of going months and then we're going back a year ago. I just think it gets a little confusing if we could just stay on a monthly bill. If
Really, the
that's-
process is, once we receive the bills, we can process them. We usually turn them around within a couple weeks before the payment. So you're not going to see them on the register unless I receive an invoice.
Okay.
So it's just that we received the invoice at that point in time is why you see the consolidation of them now. So again, once we receive them, we can process them and you'll see them on a regular basis. If
Mhm.
we don't receive the billings, and that's true for any vendor, not just legal services,
Okay.
I can't process them until I actually receive the invoice.
Okay, well, I mean, there's some of them that we see on a regular basis that
That's
are
correct.
monthlies, which is okay, but just, this one just seems to be so off because
Yeah.
we didn't see bills for months.
Yeah, and if you go back to the registers, you can actually see months being jumped and skipped.
Yeah.
That was just the way they were processing the invoices to me.
Okay.
Trust me, I prefer to have them on a constant basis too as well, because it keeps my records a lot more up to date, and I'm not
Right.
estimating when I'm giving budget updates. But again, I can't control whether they're going to
Isn't
bill
that
me or not.
contractual, though? Isn't in the contract that the vendor will
No,
supply
it's
the
more
city
in the
with
sense that
monthly
they pay
invoices?
within a term, not that they'll bill you in a term. So once you receive an invoice, you have terms in which you're going to process that payment, not necessarily whether they're going to bill you accordingly to the term. So.
Okay.
I guess we have to pay you now, still when you process yours.
I have a question on data path, 73656, Barracuda updates Netcare and on-site support. Is Barracuda a new?
It's not
virus
new.
or-
It's just an updated software that we have. It's our spam software that we have.
And that just gives me a way to bring up the Council of Governments meeting I attended on Thursday. I maybe remember the last meeting I brought up that there was ransomware that they got hijacked. The computers did at COG, Council of Governments, and they were asking for $8,000. And COG ended up, looking at the difference between paying it and just fixing it themselves. $100,000, fix it themselves. $8,000 to pay the ransom. They made a decision to pay the ransom, and they got Bitcoin, and they couldn't make it work. They couldn't interface it with the security, so they couldn't pay the $8,000. So now they're embarking on the security, and they told every city member of COG, go, mention it to your council and make sure that you are looking at these ransomware programs and that you have good protection against it, because even if you want to pay the ransom, it's hard to do it with the Bitcoin system, and it's much better. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Yeah.
So you might just want to bring it up to DataPath and just ask, what are you doing to protect us from
Firewalls.
all of these bots and these ransomware attacks out there?
Yeah, one of the things you'll see too is we're starting to update our software as they're coming to the term. New software's come out. We're doing archiving better. We're actually updating and we're increasing in which we back up our systems. We're doing it on a daily basis. If there is a corruption of the files or there's something to that extent, they can go back a period. It's not if they attack the update that's going out at that point in time, you could always go back the day prior and get that prior archive. You may lose some information, but not to the extent where you're losing months or months
This
of data.
one backed up. This one attacked their backup server as well. So
Ours is off-site and cloud-based.
almost seemed like it not necessarily an inside job, but potentially one, and it's just important to make sure that there are all sorts of fail-safe mechanisms there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else have any items to take
I have
on?
1B.
Okay, item 1B.
Trish, can you refresh me on what this is? If I want to make sure it's what I think it is.
Sure. This is a grant that we'd like to apply for, SB2 funding grant. And initially, we had mentioned that we were going to be applying for this grant to reimburse us for the housing element. So there's, but as we looked at the amount that we can apply for, which is $160,000, we looked at, and we talked to our technical advisors for the area as well as working with Townsend, and we can actually go ahead and apply for a comprehensive zoning ordinance update, which this amount should fund that entire project. And as you know, we have been out of, our zoning ordinance is very outdated. We've done
Antiquated.
patches here and there. So what we're proposing is that we apply to get the entire thing updated. And if there's any additional funding left over, if we don't use the entire 160,000, that we go ahead and write into the grant that we will either put the amount towards reimbursing ourselves for the housing element compliance work we're doing with ReCon, or that we get new permit tracking software. So depending on how much might be left.
Right. Well, I'm glad you're pursuing that avenue because, as you mentioned, our zoning is, when was the last updated? 60?
1963 was the last comprehensive one.
Right. And if we're going to work on our housing element, I think it would be unwise for us as a council to say, just fix the element, and not look at the zoning itself
As a
citywide.
whole, yeah.
And so I was going to say, if we're not doing that, we need to do that, but it looks like that's the avenue you're going down.
Yes, that is our recommendation, to look at it as a whole.
Okay, now, what's the timeline of this grant, do you know?
I believe it would be in probably the spring that we would hear.
Okay, so what's our timeline as far as visiting our zoning element, whether we get this grant or not? A visit, the comprehensive zoning. Because I still think, regardless if we get this grant or not, we still need to do a comprehensive zoning.
So the good news is that this is, as long as it qualifies, and we've been told it does, we will get this money.
Okay.
It's not a competitive grant, it's a given grant as long as it is qualified work. And we have talked to the technical experts that have been put on as consultants for this grant, and they said that they think this would very much qualify. And we're trying to get the additional state policy priority areas checked off as well that will help us for additional funding, make us more competitive for notices of funding availability in the future. So it should check several boxes for the city of Selma in the future.
Okay, now, everybody knows that hearing aids. So when was that date when you think you're going to start actually doing the zoning update? Or start, I know it takes a while to complete.
I believe we would get notice that the funding would become available in the spring, but I can send you all an update. And then we would be getting, because we have two planning firms on, I think that we can get a quicker proposal process done because we already have two on board. So I think within 60 days, we could have a firm on board to get that going.
Okay, so you think
If
it would
not
be
less,
done by the
if
end of
not le-
summer, the actual thing? You think
The
it-
whole comprehensive zoning ordinance update can take a while. For example, in Lompoc, it took us 2 years. It's a very big document to match up with your general plan. I've heard from our consultants at QK that they can probably do it in less than a year, a little less than a year, but it could take a year because you go through and you do the entire document.
Well, as we run across there, we know our zoning ordinances, I don't know what word to describe it besides ancient or.
We've done some text amendments and put some Band-Aids on it. They're kind of referred to as Band-Aids to make some things a little more up to date, but the complete and holistic look is really needed. And it will be, it will help developers as well. When somebody has a project they want to come in and look at, they'll much better be able to see how to proceed.
Okay, I think we just gotta, even though this is not very a thrilling subject, I think we need to, as council and staff, need to have a sense of urgency on this matter because it's really affecting our long-term growth, and
Yes.
it's hampering us from doing quite a lot of things. Right.
Thank you.
Does the housing element have to be back in compliance before the city can apply for these funds?
Great question. We have heard from HCD that as long as we are making significant process, that we should apply. And they
Great.
think that we will be able to, as long as we're making progress. And we are making progress.
Sounds like it. Thank you.
I have a question for you. Last meeting, you stated that we were dealing with, I think, the Raven development in regards to adding to our housing development, our housing element, or?
Raven property, they came forward and said that they would be willing to change their zoning to the R4 high density, which would help us come into compliance on the housing element. And that was.
Was that the only developer coming out, or how did the city team come in regards to Raven, or was there other that you're looking at, or what's your actually tool that you're using in regards to economic development or bringing up the housing element to plan?
So
what are you using, or what's a team using? Are you out there talking to developers, or are they it's who comes in?
So Rincon Consultants, they made a list and they ranked that list for the housing element compliance and looked at properties within the city and without the city that maybe we would look at. And then we targeted and they contacted property owners, and we contacted property owners that were at the top of the list as far as what could be changed, what zoning could be changed and quickly. Like, was it already in the city or would it need to be annexed? So that was how we ranked the property list.
Did you rank them in regards to the financial outlook of what the structure, our sewer structure looks like? Because right now SKF's, our downside is that the fact that SKF's, our infrastructure is kind of not helping us.
So for the housing element, we looked very specifically on whatever would help us get into compliance soonest on that project.
And you guys came up with the one Raven development?
No, we contacted several other property owners, actually, and they were not interested in changing their zoning. So that they were not at the top of the list, and they actually came forward on their own.
Okay.
Okay, is there a motion to
I
approve
make a
items
motion.
1A and B?
I'll second it.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Trujillo.
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra.
Aye.
Councilmember Avalos.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Franco.
Aye.
Mayor Robertson.
Aye. With that, we'll move into item number 2, which is a public hearing item. Be a public hearing to receive public input concerning by-district maps for city council election of 4 members of the city council with an elected mayor, district boundaries, and the sequencing of elections. Welcome, Shalice.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Shalice Tilton. I'm here representing National Demographics Corporation. You'll hear us referred to as NDC, and our role tonight is to present draft maps for the council to consider in transitioning from a by-district system, from an at-large system to a by-district system with 4 districts and a citywide directly elected mayor. Next slide. So in October, we held 2 of the mandatory public hearings to receive input on the compositions of the districts. And tonight is November 4th. This will be their first opportunity to actually discuss and see the 4 district maps. Many of you went through the process with the 5 district maps, so we're beginning anew with a 4 district map plan, and we'll be talking about the 4 district maps only tonight. And then we will have a similar hearing on November 18th, where we will talk about the maps again and preferably select a map on November 18th. Tonight, after the meeting, it would at the end of after the public hearing, we're hoping that the council could decide on 1 or 2 focus maps. And then on November 18th, you could decide on the final map. If you want to make a few tweaks to the maps, we're able to do so, but we have some limitations. I see a question.
You answered my question with your next sentence, so my apologies for jumping in too soon.
And then you would have your introduction of your ordinance on November 18th and your second reading on December 2nd. I should mention, for the November 18th meeting, we typically have to publish the maps 7 days in advance, and that's a holiday, and I believe the city is closed on November 11th. So we'll be posting those maps on November 8th, which makes for a very tight timeline to get the maps in. So if any member of the public were wanting to submit any maps, they'd have to do so by November 6th. Okay. I just want to remind the public that we have some mandates that we must follow when we're drawing the maps. The first one being that we must have equal population in each of the 4 districts, and we must use the 2010 census data. So based on the 2010 census data, each of the districts shall have roughly 5,930 residents. So this is citizens, non-citizens, people of all ages. There can be no more than a 10% deviation between the least populated district and the greatest populated district. In addition to the federal requirements, we are also have traditional districting principles that we follow, that being each district must be contiguous. And the council has provided direction on particular communities of interest and some goals to try to accomplish in one form or another for each of these maps. Those being having multiple representation in certain neighborhoods in certain areas, such as downtown and west of Highway 99, or the opposite side of that, having single representation. And then we had a request to have a quadrant map where we just have basically four blocks as compact as possible, by respecting the neighborhoods. We did receive, you can go ahead and advance, that's fine. We did receive one resident drawn map for this round of 4 districts. Unfortunately, it was not populated balance, so its District 2 is short by 14%, and its District 3 is overpopulated by 13%. So we do want to acknowledge that it's difficult to draw these maps and appreciate the input from the public we've had throughout this process. These maps do help provide some guidance for us, but unfortunately wouldn't be legally able to adopt this map, especially a map that is so far out of population balance. It would be difficult for us to adjust and balance this without it looking completely different. NDC drew 3 maps. When so as to avoid confusion with the earlier round that we went through, instead of naming them by colors, we're naming them by fruits. So we have pear, apple, and plum are the names that we assign to each of the maps. And each represent, are responding to the requests of the community, the council, and the districting criteria. And each balances those goals in a different manner. So for the pear map, you'll see that the districts were drawn more in a horizontal fashion. We've taken in the most neighborhoods and including with multiple representatives in more neighborhoods. So for example, the downtown area and west of 99 have multiple representatives as opposed to being all in a single district. In this, this is sometimes preferred by city councils, because then each council member has a stake in different aspects of the city as far as land use and the various neighborhood types. In this particular map, in District 4, there are 2 council members paired. It is necessary for a 4-district map. We have 5 council members, only 4 districts. There will be at least 1 district that pairs 2 council members. And so there will be pairing in District 4. I do want to make a correction to the map on the wall, the pear map over there. When we assign the sequencing, we, just as a courtesy, put the name of the seated incumbent that resides in that district, and we need to swap out Guerra and Trujillo. So Councilwoman Guerra is in District 3, and Trujillo is in District 2. So of the 3 plans, and this plan actually would provide the voters the maximum power possible to decide which voters have earned re-election, because it only does pair 2 council members. So there would be only 1 of the seated incumbents who would not be eligible or would not be able to be re-elected. And with a directly elected mayor, that council member could run for mayor, as well as any council member could run for mayor. The Apple map. This is one of the quadrants map. This one is a northwest, southwest, northeast, southeast configuration of quadrants. So this one actually has a more single representation of neighborhoods. So you can see District 3 has nearly the entire area of the west side of 99. There is an area in the south part of the city that extends west of 99. There's only 171 people in that area, and that is assigned to District 4. But District 3 has most of the area west of 99 because it was underpopulated. If you just did west of 99, that's why you see the reason for the jot out at Branch, the railroad, and North Street. District 4 extends up to Floral, and Floral is used as dividing as a border for 4, 2, and 1. And then Wright Street divides Districts 1 and 2. In this case, all 5 of the seated incumbents are paired in 2 different districts. So only 2 of the current seated council members could be re-elected. The other 3 obviously could run for the citywide office of mayor. Next is the plum. This also represents a compact quadrant type map. However, instead of the northeast and southeast type map, it's north, south, east, and west. So we see a northern district, an east district, a west district, and a southern district. This one does include multiple representation of neighborhoods and uses a crossover of the 91 freeway. So we don't see one district just residing solely on the west side. In this, and I do need to make a correction to the staff report on page 48 of your staff report. We included descriptions of each of the districts, and the last sentence for the plum description on page 48 indicates that there is only one district that has 2 council members paired, and that is incorrect. There are 2 districts that have 2 council members paired. So only 3 of the seated incumbents could be re-elected. The other 2 could obviously run for citywide mayor.
That was for plum.
So there are 2 council members
councils.
in 2 districts.
Don't they run against each other?
They could run against each other, but only one would be able to win. So the one would not be eligible to would not be able to run for re-election. Next slide. So after we open the public hearing and receive comment, we'll be asking the council for possible narrowing down of the lists, as I mentioned, if you want to discuss any changes to any of the focus maps. And at that point, we can go into detailed about the sequencing. The sequencing, as I mentioned, is posted on the maps that have been posted on the website and are posted on the wall. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this point or after the public hearing, whatever your pleasure.
Okay, public hearing. Okay, any questions from council?
No, let's go there.
No.
Okay, with that, we'll open up this matter to the public. Public hearing's now open. Would anyone like to weigh in on the districts or districts mayor at large? Can we get a microphone to Don back there?
Yeah, he's handicapped.
If you would just say your name.
Don Self, 2875 Logan Street. I'm a little confused with this districting. When I first came in, there was a wall of 5 districts. Now, it's my understanding, or I think I understand this, within 5 districts, everybody has 1 vote because we will elect people from each of the 5 districts. Now you guys put up 4 districts with what they call a mayor at large, which I understand you vote for the mayor. So that would mean that 1 district will have 2 votes and the other 3 districts only have 1 vote. And if that's correct, then because of the mayor being coming from that 1 district that gives them 2 votes, that district will always have 2 votes until the mayor time is over with. Is that correct?
This has been brought up before Don, and the answer, in my response would be actually that the mayor would be at large, would represent all 5 districts, or all 4 districts, pardon me, would represent all 4 districts. And if that mayor did not have the interests of those 4 districts at heart, that mayor wouldn't last very long.
But when it comes to voting, would that one district have 2 votes because there is a council person from the district and a mayor from the same district? Would they have 2 votes at one
It
district?
depends on the sequencing, right? Depends on the sequencing of when that mayor at large. But they would, the voters, the way I understand it, would vote for a council member and a mayor at large. And if those 2 would be in the same district, then yes, they would be voting for one in the same. Shalice, can you enlighten us on Don's question here? They would be voting for 2 different offices.
So
one
yes,
council and one mayor.
depending on, and that determination is yet to be made on if it would be a 2-year mayor or a 4-year mayor. So if it's a 4-year mayor and you're on the same cycle as that 4-year mayor, when you go to vote, you would have two offices on your ballot, your district and the mayor. If you were on a different sequencing than the mayor, if it were a 4-year, then 1 year you would be voting for your council member, and 1 year you'd be voting for the mayor. I hope that clarified and not confused.
And the question may also be that up here on the dais, how many votes would they be voting for? And I think each person still gets 1 vote.
Every
So
person.
20%.
Yeah, 1 vote per council member.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
So the mayor would not get a vote?
The mayor would get
The
a
mayor
vote,
would be
just
voting.
like every other council member.
But wait a minute. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so there's going to be 4 council members plus a mayor. Now, the mayor has to come from Selma, right? So he'll have to come from one of those districts. Is that correct? Okay,
Well-
so that one district will have a council member and a mayor voting in one district? So that would be 2 votes. Is that correct?
Shailene, let me ask this question. There could be, let's say, 4 or 5 different people running for mayor, correct? And they can live in each, say, 4 districts. So
Correct.
really and truly, you can have 4 mayors running, and they could be all in each district. So really and truly, every district will have 2 votes if they have somebody representing them as a mayor or running for a mayor.
Right, I think we're talking about 2 different things. One, the people's vote. So yes, the people will be able to vote citywide for the mayor.
Okay.
For as
And
many
they can reside
people who
anywhere
run
in the city.
for mayor as possible.
I think I also understand the question is about the vote up here. So each elected official will have equal voting power up here on the dais. So whether
So
you're a
his-
council
his-
member
so what
or the
he's asking
citywide
is-
mayor.
So what he's asking is correct. He's correct. That's, I
No.
mean, he's correct. He's
No.
gonna have,
No.
yes, he is. He's correct, because the mayor,
Depending on
The
wherever
mayor
the
isn't
mayor
necessarily going to
lands-
vote for that district.
No, but that's not the question. The question he's just asking is, will the mayor, wherever he resides, and that council member in that district, they will have 2 votes. That's not, he's not asking, will the mayor switch over? He's just asking a question, will that district have 2 votes? And it will.
It'll
Regardless
have,
where he lives. So there's
it'll
gonna be
have
one
2
district.
representatives from that district. That's
Yes.
what I think he's asking.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
The answer is yes.
But there could be a representative in every district that runs for mayor. So that district will still have.
Well, yeah, people could be voting
Yeah.
everybody could be
Everybody
voting
could
twice.
be voting
2
twice.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Any other input? Please, step up.
Yeah, Harvey Singh, 7425 East Dinuba Avenue here in Selma, just on the west side of the freeway. Basically, from what I understand, you've got 4 districts, and from what this person was showing us, it seemed like if it was my vote, if it was, I would think the para district or the para situation probably more equitable for just about everybody, because you run the length of the entire corridor where you people are living or voting or people of concern in Selma. They seem like they get the benefit of almost citywide representation from both the west to the east, and three of them, at least 1, 3, and 4 go east of, from the west of the freeway almost to the east part. Number 2 just kind of goes to the east part. That's a better solution, a better result. And as far as the voting, obviously, if you have 5 people in 4 districts, common sense would tell you that there's going to be a doubling up in some district, and that's reasonable expectation based on fact you have 4 districts and you have 5 people running. I would think, and tell me if I'm wrong, I would think that the 4 people who are elected councilman or councilwoman from those districts, those 4 serve those particular districts, no doubt about it, although they represent Selma as a large council member, but they're basically unique in the sense that they're representing their home turf, for lack of a better word. The mayor, he could be one person, could be several people running for the mayorship. He or she is not going to live on the moon, for God's sake. They're going to be in Selma. They're not going to come from Fowler. So let's realize the reality is a person, he or she, whether they're from the barrios or whether they're from Don and Lionel Soremian's proposed track, they're going to live in this area. Their function up here will be no different than the function of the councilman or councilwoman. Now, you have to have maybe an idea that, hey, the 4 of us are going to vote on everything. He or she, much like in other associations and some of the other boards I belong to, maybe only have a say when there's a tie. That's one way to do it. Or they also have an equal say if you want to keep it that way. But invariably, unless you make 5 districts, you're going to always have this situation of what Don was saying. You're going to have representation of 2 people from the same district at any one time. But the unique thing is that you're going to have 4 council members from individual districts, and then you're going to have enough people run as mayors, and he or she may be partial to their district, but I would think that if they're serving up there and have an allegiance and they swear, they're going to do what's good for the city as a whole, not what's good for 1, 2, 3, even though there could be multiple residents. But I think if you have that mindset, some of the, Mrs. Robertson was back there yelling about that and saying something about that. I'm sure you're used to that by now. And some of this other stuff, that's going to, if you give it a chance to work.
I wouldn't use the verb yelling, Harvey.
Okay. If you give it a chance to work, and if you're willing to go the extra mile, I think it'll work for itself. It's going to be a better solution than where you folks appoint yourself, or somebody appoints himself mayor. So if we go into the concept of elected mayor, that's going to be a better situation. If you go into elected mayor, that's going to be a better situation than being appointed, more responsible, more the choice of the people, the entire city at a large. But you're going to have that until you go to a 5 district. But if you have 4 districts, I think the pair will probably be the best one, with the understanding the mayor may be limited in what he or she can do up there unless there's a tiebreaker.
Thanks for your input.
Good evening. My name is Joe Gonzalez. I live at 2305 Nebraska in the barrio. Everybody knows that. In my understanding, the question here is the next time we vote for a mayor, I could get somebody from the barrio to become a mayor, right? It'd be up to the public to vote the next mayor. Right now,
it's up to you.
Right now, we're just stuck with you because you're already here, right?
Well, you know, I wouldn't use the verb stuck.
So we got no choice. But when
you're right, it's just on a rotation right now,
right.
So it's the clock that selects the mayor.
When we do vote, we do get the chance to vote for a mayor. Every district is welcome to bring one in.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. The difference is the mayor is elected, not selected.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Teresa Salas, 3221 Lee Street. Of the maps that have been submitted, I feel that the Apple map is the more equal one, or the preferred map, just because of the economic divisions on it. Just, we've talked about that before. The affluent or more well-off section of town should be separate from the west side of town. Those people have different needs and different than the people who live on Country Club Lane or in that area of town. I just feel that that shows the divisions a little bit better, especially the economic divisions that we've talked about as far as people who are able to afford to run against someone who has a little more money in the bank. It makes it very difficult to run an election when you're running against someone who has more money than you do. I mean, I know that you've all said that it doesn't make a difference, but it does. It does make a difference when your war chest is much smaller than someone else's. Also, just because they have different needs, we have the different crime levels in the west side as opposed to the east side of town. And so those people have more in common and have different needs, again, than the north or the east or the sides of town. So I think that of the maps presented, I think the Apple one is I like the divisions on that one the most.
Thank you. Anybody else with input? Come up. Okay, can we get the microphone?
Sally Guerra, 2221 Park Street. I really feel that I live in the barrio, like Joe says, but
Joe says.
we are not the barrio. We are Selma, all of us together. And definitely, I lived over here on the other side of town. Like I've heard many people say, on the good side of town. Well, I lived on the good side of town for 50 years. And I went back home to my town on Park Street. And I don't consider it the barrio because it isn't the barrio. It's all of Selma. We're all the same. And definitely, it should be taken care of just like the other parts of town. Because we are not low income or whatever you want to call it. Maybe there are some that need more help than others. But the reality of it all is the people that were there when I was born and raised there on Park Street. All the people that lived there were hard-working people. Kept their homes. Maybe they weren't as beautiful as the ones over here. But in that time, there were no beautiful homes over here. They were all the same. All the same. So we are Selma. We're not the barrio.
Thank you. Anyone else have any input?
1057 Mill Street, Rose Robertson. I just want to say, this district needs, shouldn't be about everybody getting district and trying to separate each other, us against you. A mayor will eventually, regardless where they come from, and any citizen can run, will bring all the districts together and always, again, vote for the city of Selma, not the area or the district. At the end of the day, it has nothing to do with money, or if you have money, and you don't need to be putting people down because they work hard and might have a little more than others, and on what they do for the community and what they choose to do. At the end of the day, it's about knocking on doors. If you're willing to go knock on every door in Selma, believe me, it's going to make a difference. It's not going to make a difference with the signs or who endorses you. It can, but they might endorse you because you're going to be a business person. You're going to understand what's needed for Selma, and you're just not going to be a mouthpiece for certain people to continue to run this town. So at the end of the day, do the right thing for Selma, for districts and mayor at large. Thank you.
I'll stand up here to this podium. I agree with the last two speakers. In this vein, you're going to have equal representation from those four districts. If they all happen to fall in the barrios, you're going to have people who are going to come from the barrio to represent you. You're not going to have people, all of Country Club Lane is not going to be the four councilmen or councilwomen. They're all going to have one designated area, and only one person out of Country Club Lane where all the wealth can represent. That means 75% come from a different area. Or if you do the math, probably 20-20. But the bottom line, if somebody makes the assessment that, hey, if you're poor, you cannot run, that's a fallacy. You're poor, if you live in that area, that's where maybe all that area falls into. You should be entitled to the same entitlements, and you have the same protection. The chief is not going to say, well, I'm not going to go protect that area. I'm not going to go out to those sirens. He or she is going to have an equal obligation, and the fire personnel at the same time. There's no intended discrimination that I can see. There's no intended disadvantage. That person is going to represent that district. He or she is going to run with people of equal wealth or equal economics or whatever, and that they're not going to come in and move into an area just to run for that district. If they don't live, they don't register in that area just because they happen to have more money. So I don't buy that. And as far as the economic trends, it's who you are, what you do, and what you're capable of doing. And like she said, if you go and knock on doors, now you're at advantage because you don't have to knock on 5,000 doors.
Yep.
Okay? Before you have to knock on 25,000 doors or 15,000. Now you limit yourself to what doors you have to knock. How many dogs are going to bite you just that area?
That's right.
And you better be good knowing those areas. Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, this is going to be a win-win situation for Selma. And I'm going to put one FI out there. I live in Selma. My hearts would Fowler, with all due respect. My school's Fowler, my kids are Fowler, and someday I hope to be on a council in Fowler. But I'm hoping that I'm not stupid enough and biased enough that Selma go to hell. No, I have a lot of my business in town. I have my ranching in Selma. I have concern. I have friends. What's good for Harvey and what's good for Selma is good for everybody else. But there's no, well, you're in the rich area, you're in the poor. Don't. We're living in the 21st century. Everybody has an equal opportunity. Everybody has an equal opportunity to get on the board, whether you came from Singapore like I did, or you came in from Mexico, or you came in from Japan. So, you're not disadvantaged in this day and this time and this point in society. Okay, so I think whether you choose whatever you want to based on your assessment with this person that you're working with, it is, but it's a good move forward. Having said that, I'm sorry for the extra time I took.
Thanks for your input. Certainly. That's what it's all about, the public having input. Next.
Linda Duke, 2370 Keith Street. And I was actually going to bring this up when the chief was talking, but I didn't want to interrupt him. Okay. Selma newspaper, which we used to have, used to print the police report every week. And that was always enlightening. I actually went there before the obituaries. Now it's just the obituaries. But this was a way of looking at and seeing what was going on in our city. We don't know. We hear sirens all the time. I hear gunshots all the time. I don't live on the other, wherever. I live right in the middle of town. Okay, so I would like to see the police report printed again, so you can see when your neighbor got busted and robbed, or when you see when the police had to respond to gunshots and stuff, where they went. Because when I hear, I sleep with my bedroom window open. Don't tell anybody. But I hear everything. And I hear every gunshot and every firecracker. And I was told by our prior police chief that I didn't know the difference between a bullet and a firecracker. Okay, I've been sleeping in that bedroom for 40-something years. Okay, so anyway, but I'd like to see the police report go in so that everybody can see that we got stuff all around town going on. We've got enough Bulldog members over on our side. So anyway, newspaper.
We're going to get back to the
Chief.
districting, but thank you. That's one of our oral communications, the last topic, but thank you for your input, Linda. Does anyone else have any input on the 4 districts and mayor at large?
Good evening, council. My name is Taylor Guerra. I reside at 1244 Tammy Street. I'd just like to come before you this evening and say that on behalf of the districting, as a millennial and the next generation, upcoming generation in this town, I'd like to have more say in the political process of our city. And with that, I definitely believe that we should have the opportunity to elect our mayor, just like in any other city. It is such a vital position held in our city. So absolutely, I want to say in making sure that the person that we appoint is the the most qualified and the person that's going to represent us to the absolute best to make sure that our city does not continue to be left behind. Because I can tell you, I have friends in other cities that are not too far from us that are thriving, and it's pretty sad right now that we're getting left behind and we don't see any growth, and whereas we're seeing that growth in other cities. So absolutely, I would like to be able to make sure that we have say in electing our mayor. And I'd also like to add that in regards to the comment about money, I can guarantee you actually that if you didn't have a dime to your name, if you got out there and devoted your time to these citizens and made yourself available at these events and helped out and showed your face and did what you can with your time, which some consider to be more valuable than money, you would have a place up here. And I can tell you that I don't base my vote on the size of someone's bank account. So I'd just like to add that and say that we would like to vote our mayor at large. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Nindi Sandhu, 2416 Rodeo Street, and I fully agree with the gentleman. I think these are fairly representative. They're definitely not gerrymandered, as you can tell. And I speak on behalf of the 4 districts and the mayor's election at large. And the part of the reason I support that, and it's fine that you rotate the mayorship every year, but when a mayor is running for the whole city, you have a platform that you're running on. You're telling the folks that what your priorities are and what you intend to achieve. And in order for you to do that, you have to work with a city council. If the city council is not with the elected mayor, there's not much can be done. So I think that the internal politics of the council is going to be forced to change, because you have to achieve something, you have to have a plan. And if you don't live up to the expectations of the public, of the citizens of Selma, then after 4 years, you'll be gone. So again, I support the responsibility. The way we are currently doing it's a 1 year, then there's another mayor, city council is the same. So the accountability, it seems like it's more like a shared thing rather than one person, taking the helm. Imagine us having, 5 different presidents, 4 different presidents every year. Mm-hmm. It doesn't work like that. So again, I support in, deciding that the 4 districts and the mayor at large. Thank you.
Colleen Nelson, 1712 Oak Street. Of the 3 maps, wouldn't matter to me which one you go with. They're all pretty darned even. I support a mayor at large because I like the idea of someone who can actually get started and work on a vision. And, so just help me get this clear. If you decide you want to run for mayor, you run for mayor, you are not running to represent your district. You're not running for both. So if you've got 5 people in town that want to run for mayor on their campaign, I am running for mayor. They're
Right,
not running.
You can't run for both. from
You
what I
can't run for
understand.
both.
Right.
So, okay. That's all I needed. Thank you.
Question.
Hello, my name is Juan Mendoza, and I live in 3321 Moyer Street, Selma. I'm a long resident of the city, and also live in the Socol barrio for a lot of years. I live in Skelton Street, Yellow Street, Sheridan Street, Valley View Street. Now I live on this side, like the lady said, on the better side. Okay, I was lucky that I got a good job and work hard. That's why I got a better home. I made my residence there in the last 40 years. Okay? The last meeting we had, a gentleman said that the mayor didn't make no difference. He says, it doesn't make any difference. They all have a vote. Exactly. Everybody has a vote. The mayor makes a big difference. Let me tell you why. I'm going to go a little city named Orange Cove. They have a mayor there that has got a dynamic personality. This guy brings business to the city. He brings big names to the city. Therefore, they have real good facilities, playgrounds. That guy brings the money. So the mayor doesn't make a difference. I hope we can find one that's got the same personality, vitality, and likability, and get us a lot of business here so we can have money, so we can hire more police, and maybe we can put a substation in the barrio. So a substation in the barrio would be the greatest thing that we can have. Then we'll have the police presence over there all the time. So I say we have a strong mayor, and let the boys decide who they want. As a young man, I casted my first vote for Robert Kennedy. And we had a headquarters, Robert Kennedy headquarters in the barrio, and it was Concha, Ochoa, and then in Ochoa's house. We had a Robert Kennedy headquarters. I become a prison worker. The whole body become a prison worker. And we give Robert Kennedy the state of California. So I say we vote for a strong mayor in the next general election.
Thank you. Any public input? They're just leaving. Okay, with that, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Does council have any input tonight? We're having a public listening session, and
Just the informational for the people.
this is informational. At the next
That way
meeting,
they
we
can
would,
digest
we
the
would adopt the
situation.
map and the,
I think they wanted
sequencing.
direction on, is there any of these maps that we're gravitating to? Is that correct? Didn't you mention that? So if there's one you want to,
if anyone wants to weigh in on what map they're gravitating to.
I like Apple because it keeps the west side together, but it also groups all the existing council members into two districts. Is there any way you can modify Apple so you can lessen that, or is that just as good as it's going to be?
It's kind of hard there.
I don't know. I
Then
mean,
it
you said
turns
they could
into-
tweak it.
Then it turns into plumber pair, though.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Well, I mean,
I
can
don't
you?
want to interrupt.
I don't know. She's the expert. I mean, maybe they change it this way, but it keeps us together, you know?
That would be difficult to answer on the spot. It would be difficult to keep the west side, all in the west side with the barrio and everything west of 99, because that would be a vacant district. So you would have at least one vacant district. So probably the closest one to that would be Plum.
Yeah, because there's just one little section there in the value. Do you want to weigh in? Do you have anything?
What is it, just the information for the public,
Yeah.
let them
Yeah.
digest the situation.
I think there's something to be said for each map.
Yeah, you know, there's something to say in the next round.
Yeah.
I closed the public hearing. Do you want to weigh in again, Indy?
That's fine.
Okay. We'll bring this back. Okay, without that, you're going to check in to that for the next meeting? You're going to do that right now, or?
He asked the question.
Yeah, if you would like to give us direction to, it would be a completely different map, though. It would be difficult to take all the features of Apple and create a district where it would not pair at least 4 council members.
Well, is there another option where you can keep the west side its own district and then modify the other sections of town to balance it? That's all I was asking.
If you keep the west side its own district, then you're going to have two districts that pair two council members.
Yeah. So that's what we got. That's the best you can do.
We can come up with another option if you want to give specific directions on the features you want to keep with the pear map with the Apple map aside from the District 3. Are there other features that you specifically want to keep, and what areas, if you have some specific areas you'd like to modify?
Well,
The horizontal qualities.
Shailene, do you want us to pick a map?
No, she just wants to
We
know
don't-
if
we
you
don't
want
have to
one or
pick,
you want two.
we're not to pick a map tonight.
We don't
It's
have
not
to.
necessary to pick
She's
one
just
today.
asking
Okay.
which one we
If
like,
the
which one we
council's
don't.
comfortable with narrowing it down to one or two, that would be ideal, but if you're not at that point,
I
there's
think
only
there's something
three.
to be said from my perspective for each map, and I think I'd like to keep looking at the maps. And it was invaluable to get the public input tonight.
Right.
So I really want to digest that
Okay.
before the next meeting.
And then I would just need to know if there is a request to modify Apple. I would need some specifics on what you'd like to see.
Can you give me an example? I mean, because I'm the one who made that request, so,
Mhm.
but yet your instructions is not really telling me what you want to hear.
Well, for example, with the Apple map,
Mhm.
you could possibly bring your District 1 over, bring it over east, but you would be bringing it quite a bit east to look like the pear map.
Yeah, it's going to look like the pear map.
It would look very much like it would have to look like the pear map for your District 1.
It would look like the pear map, but it would keep the west side its one own representative, right?
It would keep its own representative.
Could I see that? Could I see an example of that at the next meeting, if possible?
Okay, yeah, and I just doing this just quickly on my feed, I'm not sure, we may have to population balance in some other areas
Okay,
as
if
well.
it's not possible, that's fine, but, because by doing that, just so I can share my thought process is, when we split it, it doesn't necessarily guarantee representation for that west side of town. But if we keep it together, that does. And that's my thought process.
Yeah, so you would still have two districts that pair two council members. Because you would have, you have one vacant district, and then you have 5 council members, so you'd have another
ones from the south
district.
would have
So
two
you'd have two
council
districts that would
members.
pair council members.
It would be two?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right.
The only way to not have two is if you bring District 3 all the way over to the east side as in the pear map. So, and then you would not be able to include all of the,
Then you have to extend it to purple.
yeah. So it's not
Extend it
possible
down.
to do the Apple map without having 2 other districts that pair 2 council. So you have 4 council members in paired districts.
Right now, we have all 5. So doesn't that improve it?
Yeah, it would improve it, yes, we could,
So,
okay.
I mean, it's really a better
So if-
version of Apple.
Okay, and would you like to remedy that with bringing District 1 over to the east, or would you like to?
I'll let you make the most logical choice on that, and I won't put in my biased opinion into it.
Okay.
Because I've lived in one of these districts. Just do what makes the most logical sense.
So what I'm hearing is your goal is to keep District 3 as intact as possible with as far as the west end.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
And then north of the west end, are you okay if that is not kept on the west side of 91?
If it has to be that way to keep District 3 intact, then I'm fine with that.
Okay, so we'll try to come up with an Apple version that tries to keep the west end entirely in one district, and then District 1 will extend east, which will make District, it'll have a domino effect, but we can try to come up with a solution that keeps the west end with the barrio in one district.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, anything else?
No.
All right, it's a discussion item, so we will move on from here to item 3. We've been at this almost 2 hours now. Why don't we take a 5-minute break and we'll come back at 8 o'clock.
Thank you, Scott.